Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker. He has seen things in his career that most people can only imagine. He has been part of one of the most beloved franchises in the history of entertainment. When Tom Kane died on May 18, 2026, the man who spent years beside him in recording studios, voicing the wisest character in the Star Wars universe, Hamill posted one word in all capitals: devastated. Then he said, "There will never be another one quite like him." From the man who played Luke Skywalker about the man who voiced Yoda, that is not a publicity tribute, that is grief. And it is the right response to a life this extraordinary. Kane was 64 years old when he died. To most of the world, he was invisible in the way that voice actors are invisible. His face unknown, his name unrecognized. His presence felt only through the characters he inhabited. Those characters: Yoda, the definitive animated voice of the most iconic Jedi Master in cinema history, across video games and all 132 episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, role he inherited from Frank Oz and made entirely his own. Professor Utonium, the warm, devoted, slightly overwhelmed scientist father of 3 superhero daughters. In the Powerpuff Girls, character that a fatherless show creator wrote as the father he wished he'd had and then gave to Tom Kane to bring to life. The narrator of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, that opening voice that set the tone for every single episode of a series that defined a generation of Star Wars fans. Takeo Masaki in the Call of Duty Zombies franchise. Mr. Harriman in Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. A live announcer at 4 Academy Award ceremonies. Decades of work. Hundreds of characters. Voice that was, in the most literal sense, part of the soundtrack of millions of childhoods. And then in November 2020, a stroke changed everything. In November 2020, Tom Kane suffered a severe stroke. The damage was significant and specific. The stroke affected the right side of his body, and it induced a condition called apraxia, a neurological disorder that affects a person's ability to perform voluntary movements, including the movements required for speech. Most people, apraxia is a serious health challenge. For a voice actor, for a person whose entire professional identity, whose entire livelihood, whose entire contribution to the art form lived in the precise, controlled, expressive use of his voice, it was the end of the career. In 2021, his family announced his retirement from the entertainment industry. Not a choice to step back, not a gradual transit. The stroke had damaged his reading, his writing, and his ability to speak in the way his work required. Tom Kane was 59 years old when he retired. He had years of work left in him, characters he would never get to voice, projects he would never get to be part of. And he lived with that for 5 years, until his death on May 18, 2026, from complications related to that same stroke. The voice that was Yoda, the voice that was Professor Utonium, the voice that opened every episode of The Clone Wars with that sweeping narration, silenced by a stroke at 59. Gone entirely at 64. Mark Hamill had previously described Tom Kane publicly as an enormously gifted actor and a genuinely nice person. Those two things, the gift and the genuine kindness, appear in virtually every tribute that has emerged since Kane's death. From castmates and collaborators, from the gaming studios he worked with, from younger voice actors who knew him from conventions. The combination is worth noting, because in an industry full of talented people, talent alone does not generate the kind of response Tom Kane's death produced. What generates that response is talent plus character, skill plus humanity. Hamill's devastated, all caps, one word, was the emotional headline. The sentence that followed it says more. There will never be another one quite like him. That is not a generic tribute. That is a specific claim about irreplaceability. From someone who worked closely enough with Kane to know, not just as a fan, not just as an admirer, but as a colleague who shared recording sessions with him, that what he brought to a room and to a microphone was singular. The Star Wars website published a tribute to Kane that reflected the same sentiment from the franchise. This was not a peripheral contributor. He voiced Yoda across the animated universe. He narrated 132 episodes of a series that is, for many fans, their primary Star Wars experience. His voice is in the DNA of that world. The tributes that followed Kane's death came from every corner of the entertainment world his voice had touched. From the Powerpuff Girls, Catherine Cavadini, who voiced Blossom, said her heart was aching and that the world had lost one of the best humans on the planet. Tara Strong, who voiced Bubbles, said those people never met Tom Kane in response to the idea that a perfect man doesn't exist. In the gaming world, Treyarch Studios, the development team behind Call of Duty, posted that they were devastated by the loss of their friend, specifically citing his unwavering kindness, not his talent, his kindness. Fellow voice actors, Steve Blum and Roger Clark, both significant figures in their own right, shared stories about Kane's hospitality at convention, his openness to younger talent, his mentorship. The through line in all of it is the same word, in different forms. Kind, genuine, nice, best human, warmth, open door, a man of extraordinary professional accomplishment, who was also, by the account of everyone who encountered him, exactly what his most beloved character embodied. Professor Utonium was patient, devoted, warm, and present for the people who needed him. Kane, apparently, was that. Not as a performance, as a person. Here's the detail about Tom Kane's life that the professional tributes circle around, but that deserves to be placed at the center. He and his wife Cindy were married for 44 years. They had 9 children, 3 biological, 6 welcomed into their home through fostering and adoption, 6 children who needed a home, who needed a father, who found both in a voice actor from Kansas City who spent his days inhabiting fictional fathers and wise mentors, and then went home and was exactly that for real. Craig McCracken, the creator of the Powerpuff Girls, grew up without a father. He wrote Professor Utonium as the father he wished he had. He chose Tom Kane to be that voice, and Tom Kane, who gave that character warmth and patience and unconditional love, had already built a home on exactly those values. For real children, in real circumstances. The fictional father and the real father were the same person. That is not a detail to rush past, that is the center of the story. When Tara Strong says those people never met Tom Kane in response to the idea that a perfect man doesn't exist, she is not engaging in hyperbole. She is describing someone whose professional gift and personal character were, by all available evidence, genuinely aligned. He voiced, he lived. Tom Kane's voice is not gone. Every episode of The Clone Wars still exists. All 132 of them. The narration that opens each one, that sweeping authoritative voice that sets the tone, is preserved permanently. Every video game, every Powerpuff Girls episode, every moment of Yoda's animated wisdom. His voice outlasts his body. That is the specific immortality of his profession. There are questions the industry now faces. Yoda's animated voice in future Star Wars projects, whether it is recast, whether AI voice technology enters the conversation, whether the franchise finds another approach, is a live question. Kane was the definitive animated Yoda. The transition from Frank Oz to Kane was itself significant. What comes next is genuinely open. For the families of the 6 children Tom Kane fostered or adopted, the loss is not about legacy or industry questions. It is about a father, and that grief belongs entirely to them. Cindy Kane, his wife of 44 years, is now navigating the same kind of loss that Betty Robeson described as the loss of a partner who was present in every dimension of life. 44 years, 9 children, a voice that shaped multiple generations of entertainment, and a kindness that everyone who met him felt immediately. We live in an age where voice acting is slowly gaining the recognition it has always deserved. The people behind the characters, the ones who gave Yoda his weight, who gave Professor Utonium his warmth, who opened 132 episodes of a beloved animated series with authority and presence, are being seen finally as the artists they are. And Tom Kane was one of the best of them. By the account of everyone who worked alongside him, Mark Hamill, Tara Strong, Craig McCracken, the studios and franchises and co-stars who knew him, he was also one of the best of us. Enormously gifted, genuinely nice, the best human, a perfect man. And at home, a husband of 44 years, a father of 9, a person who opened his house to 6 children who needed one. The stroke took his voice in 2022. His death on May 18, 2026, took the rest. But the recordings remain. Professor Utonium remains, Yoda remains, the narration remains, and somewhere in Kansas City, 9 children and a wife of 44 years are carrying the version of Tom Kane that no recording can capture. The one who came home after the studio sessions, the one who was, by every account, exactly what he sounded like. Mark Hamill said there will never be another one quite like him. He's right. Rest well, Professor. Rest well, Master Yoda. The galaxy is quieter without you.